Amelia Brooks had spent most of her life doing exactly what was expected of her. Born into one of Boston's wealthiest families, she grew up surrounded by privilege, influence, and carefully crafted appearances. From the outside, her life looked perfect. Her family owned multiple businesses, attended charity galas, and appeared regularly in society magazines. People envied the Brooks name. What nobody saw was the invisible cage built around Amelia long before she became old enough to recognize it. Every major decision in her life had been made for her. The university she attended, the career path she followed, even the people she was allowed to spend time with. Now, at 28 years old, the final decision was being forced upon her. Marriage. The grand wedding venue overlooking the harbor sparkled with luxury. Crystal chandeliers illuminated the ballroom, while hundreds of influential guests gathered below. Every detail had been planned months in advance. Every flower arrangement, every photograph, every public smile had been carefully organized. Everything except Amelia's happiness. As preparations continued around her, she sat quietly in the bridal suite, staring at her reflection. The expensive white dress felt less like a celebration and more like a uniform she had been ordered to wear. The man waiting at the altar was Nathan Caldwell. Successful, wealthy, respected. At least that was a version everyone else saw. Amelia had spent the last year trying to convince herself that marrying Nathan was the right thing to do. Yet every time she imagined their future, an uncomfortable feeling settled deep inside her chest. Nathan never seemed interested in her thoughts, never cared about her dreams, never asked what she wanted from life. Instead, he seemed interested in what she represented: the Brooks family name, the connections, the influence, the fortune. That realization had slowly become impossible to ignore. An even darker concern had emerged during the previous few months. Nathan's behavior had changed. Phone calls he refused to explain. Meetings he kept secret. Long periods where he disappeared without warning. Whenever Amelia questioned him, the answers felt rehearsed rather than genuine. That morning, as guests filled the venue, she noticed something else. Nathan appeared nervous. Not ordinary wedding day nervousness. Something deeper, something closer to fear. The sight unsettled her. For the first time, Amelia found herself wondering whether she truly knew the man she was about to marry. An uncomfortable thought suddenly surfaced. What if this marriage wasn't simply a mistake? What if it was part of something much larger? The idea refused to leave her mind. Outside the suite, the ceremony was only minutes away. Family members moved through the hallway, making final preparations. The pressure surrounding her felt almost unbearable. Everyone expected her to smile, walk down the aisle, and fulfill the role that had been designed for her. But something felt wrong, dangerously wrong. Then, while reaching for a small clutch bag she planned to carry to the ceremony, Amelia noticed an unfamiliar phone lying inside. She frowned. The device wasn't hers. Confused, she picked it up and glanced at the screen. What she saw instantly drained the color from her face. Because the messages displayed there proved that Nathan Caldwell had been lying to her for months. For several seconds, Amelia Brooks could do nothing except stare at the messages on the screen. The unfamiliar phone felt unusually heavy in her hands. At first, she assumed there had to be some mistake. Perhaps the device belonged to a member of the wedding staff or one of Nathan's associates. But as she scrolled through conversation, denial became impossible. Nathan Caldwell's name appeared repeatedly. So did her father's. The messages weren't personal. They weren't romantic. They were transactional. Numbers filled the screen. Large numbers. Corporate assets. Investment transfers. Merger projections. What Amelia initially thought was a wedding discussion quickly revealed itself as something entirely different. A business agreement. The deeper she read, the colder she felt. One document attached to the conversation outlined a financial restructuring plan that would become active immediately following the marriage. Another detailed the transfer of voting control within several Brooks family companies. Her name appeared multiple times, not as a person, not as a future wife, as an asset, an instrument, a requirement. The realization struck harder than any betrayal she had ever experienced. The wedding was never the objective. The marriage was merely the mechanism. A powerful intellectual truth settled into her mind. People often believed deception required elaborate lies. In reality, the most effective deception simply allowed someone to assume the wrong conclusion. Everyone had spoken about love, about commitment, about building a future together. No one had needed to lie directly. They simply allowed her to believe the engagement meant something it never did. As Amelia continued reading, another pattern emerged. Nathan wasn't the architect. He was a participant. The messages showed that negotiations between the Brooks family and Nathan's family had started long before she accepted the proposal. Discussions about market influence, political relationships, and corporate expansion stretched back nearly 2 years. Her engagement had been planned before she even knew it existed. Fear slowly replaced shock. If her family had hidden this much, what else were they hiding? She searched through additional files. One message referenced a confidential agreement involving offshore accounts. Another mentioned a legal issue that would disappear once the merger was completed. The language remained intentionally vague, but the implication was clear. Something dangerous existed beneath the polished surface of both families. Something worth hiding. A knock on the bridal suite door suddenly echoed through the room. Amelia locked the phone screen immediately. Her heartbeat accelerated. Voices moved through the hallway outside. The ceremony was getting closer. Every passing minute reduced her options. She looked around the room, trying to think clearly. For the first time in her life, she wasn't worried about disappointing her family. She was worried about what might happen if she obeyed them. The distinction changed everything. Another knock came, this time more urgent. Someone was looking for her. The realization forced a decision. If she walked down the aisle, she might become trapped in a situation far larger than she understood. If she ran, she would be abandoning everything she had ever known. Neither option felt safe. Then her eyes settled on a service corridor visible through a partially open side door. Unlike the main hallway, it appeared completely empty. The route connected directly to the catering area and staff kitchens. Most guests wouldn't even know it existed. For the first time that morning, Amelia saw something she hadn't seen in months, a possible way out. And moments later, she discovered an opportunity to escape through the kitchen without anyone noticing. The possibility of escape changed everything. Only minutes earlier, Amelia Brooks had felt trapped inside a future she never chose. Now, standing beside the hidden service corridor, she faced a different kind of fear. The fear of acting. The fear of abandoning the life she had always known. For a brief moment, she hesitated. Walking away from the wedding would create consequences she couldn't fully predict. Her family would be furious. Business partners would demand answers. The media would eventually discover what happened. But another thought surfaced. Some prisons looked exactly like opportunities. That realization struck harder than anything she had read on the phone. Without allowing herself more time to think, Amelia slipped through the side door and entered the service corridor. The sounds of the wedding immediately changed. The elegant music faded behind the walls. The conversations became distant, instead of luxury and celebration. She found herself surrounded by industrial lighting, storage carts, and narrow hallways used by staff members. For the first time that day, nobody was watching her. She moved quickly. Every step increased the distance between herself and the ceremony. Every step also increased the risk. The corridor twisted through the building like a maze. Several doors led to supply rooms, while others connected to kitchens and service areas. Amelia followed the directional signs as quietly as possible, trying not to attract attention. Ahead, she heard movement. A group of catering employees crossed an intersecting hallway, carrying trays toward the ballroom. Amelia immediately stepped behind a supply shelf. Her heart pounded. If someone recognized her, the entire escape would end before it truly began. The workers passed without noticing. She exhaled slowly and continued forward. The deeper she moved into the service area, the more chaotic everything became. Kitchen staff rushed between stations. Orders were being shouted. Dishes clattered against metal counters. The wedding guests upstairs expected perfection, and dozens of employees worked frantically to maintain the illusion. Ironically, the chaos became her greatest advantage. Nobody paid attention to one woman moving through the crowd. Everyone was focused on their own responsibilities. Amelia lowered her head and blended into the movement around her. Hope slowly replaced panic. For the first time all morning, freedom felt real. Not guaranteed. Not safe, but possible. A powerful emotional truth emerged inside her. People often imagine courage as the absence of fear. The reality was far less glamorous. Courage was moving forward, while fear remained present. Amelia felt terrified, yet she kept walking. A large metal door appeared at the far end of the kitchen. Sunlight leaked through the narrow glass panel near the top. The rear exit. Her pulse accelerated. Just beyond that door waited the outside world. No family pressure. No forced marriage. No carefully arranged future. Only uncertainty. And uncertainty suddenly felt beautiful. Behind her, distant voices echoed through the hallway. Someone had noticed her absence. The search had begun. Amelia didn't stop. She moved faster. Each step carried greater urgency. The voices grew louder. Closer. She reached the door and grabbed the handle. Her hand trembled. One final breath. One final decision. Then she pulled the door open and stepped outside. And the moment she crossed the threshold, she realized someone was already waiting for her. The cold morning air hit Amelia Brooks the moment she stepped outside. For a fraction of a second, relief surged through her. She had escaped. The wedding was behind her. The ballroom, the lies, and the carefully arranged future no longer stood directly in front of her. Then she saw the man waiting beside a black luxury sedan, and the relief vanished. He stood perfectly still near the rear passenger door, dressed in a dark tailored suit that looked expensive without trying to look expensive. Several feet away, two other men remained positioned near the vehicle, alert but silent. The entire scene felt strangely controlled, deliberate, as if her arrival had been expected. Amelia immediately recognized the name before she consciously processed the face. Damien Moretti. Even people far removed from his world knew who he was. His reputation stretched across cities and industries. Officially, he controlled shipping companies, real estate developments, and international investment firms. Unofficially, far more dangerous stories followed his name. Stories about organized crime, political influence, financial networks that operated in shadows most people never saw. The Moretti empire had become the subject of countless investigations and rumors over the years. None had ever successfully touched him. That fact alone made him intimidating. What terrified Amelia wasn't merely his reputation. It was his presence. Why was a man like Damien Moretti standing outside her wedding? The question immediately created dozens of others. Damien studied her calmly. No surprise appeared on his face. No confusion. Only observation. The look of someone confirming an expected outcome. Amelia instinctively took a step backward. Every survival instinct told her to leave. Unfortunately, she had nowhere to go. Behind her, wedding staff and family members were likely already searching. Ahead stood one of the most powerful men on the East Coast. The realization created a terrifying possibility. Had she escaped one trap only to enter another? A powerful intellectual truth surfaced in her mind. Sometimes freedom didn't arrive as an open road. Sometimes it arrived disguised as a crossroads between two dangerous choices. Damien remained silent for several seconds. The silence itself created tension. He appeared entirely comfortable, allowing uncertainty to do the work for him. That alone told Amelia something important. Men accustomed to power rarely rush conversations. Finally he spoke, not aggressively, not threateningly, simply with certainty. The kind of certainty that immediately demanded attention. His first words shocked her, not because of what they said, because of what they implied. He wasn't asking who she was. He already knew. He wasn't asking why she left. He already knew that too. The realization sent another wave of unease through her. How much had he been watching? How much did he know? Amelia searched for answers in his expression and found none. Damien Moretti revealed very little. That seemed intentional. The man standing before her had spent years building an empire around information. Information was power, and he clearly possessed information she didn't. The distant sound of voices echoed from somewhere behind the building. People were getting closer. Time was running out. Amelia knew she needed answers, even if she didn't trust the person offering them. Damien glanced briefly toward the hotel before returning his attention to her. Then he delivered the sentence that changed everything. A sentence so unexpected that it momentarily erased every other concern, because Damien calmly informed her that he knew a secret about the Brooks family, a secret capable of destroying everything Amelia believed about her life. The words Damien Moretti had spoken refused to leave Amelia's mind, a secret capable of destroying everything she believed about her family. Only minutes earlier, she would have dismissed such a claim as manipulation, after discovering the hidden financial agreements surrounding her wedding. However, certainty had become a luxury she no longer possessed. Damien opened the rear door of the sedan and retrieved a thin black folder. No dramatic gestures, no threats, only evidence. That fact alone unsettled her. People who relied on lies usually talked too much. People who possessed proof rarely needed to. Amelia accepted the folder with trembling hands. Inside were copies of financial records, partnership agreements, offshore transactions, and photographs dating back more than a decade. The deeper she looked, the worse it became. The Brooks family had never been as clean as they appeared. Behind their respected public image existed a network of hidden relationships connecting powerful corporations, political figures, and criminal organizations. Some transactions carried names she recognized immediately. Others belonged to shell companies designed to hide ownership and accountability. Every page seemed to reveal another layer of deception. Her father hadn't merely protected business interests. He had actively participated in agreements that benefited powerful people operating outside the law. The wedding itself suddenly looked much smaller. It wasn't the center of the story. It was merely the latest chapter, a carefully planned transaction designed to strengthen existing alliances. Amelia felt physically sick. The people she trusted most had spent years constructing a version of reality that concealed the truth. What hurt wasn't simply the corruption. It was a realization that everyone around her had known. Executives, family advisors, business associates, possibly even her fiancé. The only person left uninformed had been Amelia herself. A powerful emotional truth struck her harder than any document. Betrayal becomes unbearable when it arrives disguised as love. For years, she had interpreted control as protection. She had mistaken manipulation for concern. She had accepted decisions made on her behalf because she believed the people making them cared about her future. Now she understood something devastating. Her future had never belonged to her. It had belonged to whoever benefited most from controlling it. The realization shattered something fundamental inside her. Trust. Not just trust in her family. Trust in her own judgment. If she had been deceived for this long, what else had she failed to see? For several moments, she couldn't speak. The weight of the truth settled heavily across every memory she possessed. Birthdays, family dinners, corporate events. Conversations she once considered ordinary suddenly appeared different. Every moment carried a new question. How much of it had been real? Damien allowed the silence to exist. He didn't interrupt her thoughts. Perhaps he understood that some truths required space to become fully painful. Eventually, Amelia closed the folder. Her hands felt cold. Her world felt unfamiliar. Yet Damien's expression suggested there was something even worse still waiting. Something he hadn't shown her yet. That realization immediately drew her attention. If the documents weren't the most important part of his investigation, then what was? Damien slowly removed a single photograph from the folder. A photograph containing a face Amelia recognized instantly. And the moment she saw the name connected to Damien's investigation, she realized the entire story had just changed. The photograph changed everything. Amelia stared at it for several seconds, convinced she had misunderstood what she was seeing. The face was familiar, too familiar. It belonged to Nathan Brooks, her uncle, a man who had spent decades presenting himself as the quiet architect behind the family's success. He rarely appeared in public interviews. He avoided attention. He preferred operating behind conference room doors rather than standing in front of cameras. To Amelia, he had always seemed harmless, reliable, predictable, the last person she would ever suspect. Yet the investigation Damien Moretti had assembled told a completely different story. Nathan Brooks wasn't simply connected to the corruption. He was at the center of it. Years of hidden transactions linked directly back to him. Secret partnerships, political influence networks, criminal financial arrangements. Every major agreement eventually led to the same name, Nathan Brooks. The realization left Amelia speechless. For months she had suspected her fiancé. Then she questioned her father. Now she was discovering that the true mastermind had been standing in the background all along, a man nobody thought to examine because he never demanded attention. A powerful intellectual truth emerged from the revelation. The most dangerous people are often the ones who never look powerful. Nathan had mastered that principle. While others became visible targets, he remained hidden. While others accepted public responsibility, he quietly accumulated control. The wedding itself had been his idea. The financial arrangement, the business merger, the timing, the pressure applied to Amelia's family. Everything traced back to him. Suddenly, every event made sense. Not because the mystery became simpler, because it became darker. Nathan hadn't merely manipulated a business deal. He had manipulated entire lives. Damien continued explaining the broader picture. The conspiracy extended far beyond one family. Nathan's network connected powerful investors, political figures, and criminal organizations across multiple states. Billions of dollars moved through systems designed to conceal ownership and accountability. The wedding represented only one piece of a much larger strategy. And now there was a problem. Amelia knew enough to become dangerous, not because she possessed evidence, because she existed. Her escape threatened carefully protected plans. Her cooperation with Damien threatened years of secrecy. Her survival threatened people with enormous resources. For the first time, Amelia understood the scale of the danger surrounding her. This was no longer about freedom. It was about survival. The stakes had increased dramatically. Nathan Brooks would not simply allow events to unfold. People with that level of power never did. Every hour she remained beyond his control created risk for him, which meant he would eventually respond. That realization tightened the atmosphere around them. Even Damien's security team appeared more alert. Phones buzzed. Messages arrived. Updates moved between trusted personnel. The situation was evolving quickly. Then another report reached Damien. His expression changed immediately, not dramatically, but enough. Amelia noticed. Something had gone wrong. A security breach. An information leak. Someone had transmitted details that should have remained private. Their location, their movements, their plans. For a moment, silence settled over the area. The kind of silence that arrives before bad news. Damien slowly lowered his phone. His gaze hardened, because the information revealed something even more dangerous than Nathan's conspiracy. Someone close to Amelia had secretly informed the enemy exactly where she was hiding. The storm outside raged harder than ever, but Amelia barely noticed. The real storm was standing in front of her. Marcus lowered his weapon, his expression filled with something worse than anger, guilt. "You should have stayed hidden," he said quietly. Amelia stared at him in disbelief. Marcus had been her last source of certainty in a world built on lies. He had helped her escape, protected her secrets, and promised that he would never betray her. Yet the armed men surrounding them answered to him. The truth crashed into her chest like a physical blow. "You sold me out." His silence was answer enough. For a moment, Amelia couldn't breathe. Trust was fragile, but hers had already been shattered too many times. This betrayal cut deeper because she had chosen to believe him. Then everything exploded into chaos. A gunshot echoed to the abandoned warehouse. One of the men collapsed. Damien emerged from the shadows. The attackers reacted instantly, firing toward him. Bullets ripped through crates and shattered windows. Amelia dropped to the floor as debris rained around her. "Move!" Damien shouted. She hesitated only a second before running. The warehouse became a battlefield. Men screamed orders. Gunfire thundered through the darkness. Damien fought with ruthless precision, forcing a path toward the exit. But there were too many enemies. A sharp cry escaped Amelia when she saw Damien stumble. Blood spread across his side. He had been hit. For the first time since she had known him, Genuine fear gripped her heart. Damien ignored the wound and pushed forward. "Keep moving," he growled. "You're bleeding." "I said move." Something in his voice made her obey. A terrifying thought suddenly struck her. If Damien fell, she would be completely alone. The realization shook her more than the bullets fly around them. Together they reached a narrow service tunnel behind the warehouse. Damien sealed the entrance, buying them precious minutes. Both of them collapsed against the cold concrete wall. Heavy silence filled the darkness. Amelia looked at the blood, soaking through Damien's shirt. "Why?" she whispered. "Why keep risking your life for me?" Damien's jaw tightened. For a moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then she noticed a photograph partially exposed inside his jacket. A photograph of her mother. Her heart stopped. Before she could ask another question, Damien snatched the picture away. But she had already seen it. The expression on his face revealed something far more dangerous than any enemy hunting them. He wasn't protecting her because of a promise. He was protecting her because of a secret connected to her mother. And whatever that secret was, Damien had been hiding it from her all along. The photograph haunted Amelia throughout the night. As Damien recovered from his wound in a secluded safe house, he finally revealed the truth he had hidden for years. Her mother had not died by accident. She had uncovered a secret network of corruption involving Amelia's powerful family and several influential allies. Before her death, she had entrusted Damien with a single mission: protect Amelia until she was strong enough to uncover the truth herself. The revelation shattered the final illusion Amelia had been clinging to. The people she had once admired had built their fortune on lies, manipulation, and betrayal. Yet something inside her changed. For the first time, she stopped waiting for someone else to save her. A painful realization struck her with unexpected force. The most dangerous prison was not the one built by enemies. It was a fear that kept people from choosing their own future. That understanding gave her clarity. The next morning, Amelia made her decision. Instead of running, she would fight. Using the evidence gathered throughout her journey, she arranged a final confrontation with the remaining members of the organization responsible for her mother's death. The meeting took place inside a private estate that had once symbolized her family's power. Now it felt like a monument to corruption. The confrontation was brutal. Secrets were exposed. Alliances collapsed. Years of deception unraveled in a matter of hours. When authorities arrived with undeniable proof, the empire that controlled countless lives finally began to fall apart. Arrests followed. Financial records surfaced. Hidden crimes were brought into the light. The family name that had once inspired respect became a symbol of disgrace. Amelia watched it happen without satisfaction. There was only acceptance. Some victories did not feel triumphant. They simply felt necessary. As the dust settled, the last remaining enemy attempted to escape. Cornered and desperate, he offered Amelia wealth, influence, and protection in exchange for her silence. Months earlier, the offer might have tempted her. Now she barely hesitated. No. One word ended everything. The authorities took him away. For the first time in years, Amelia felt the weight on her shoulders begin to lift. The following months brought healing. She built a new life far from the shadows of her past. Damien eventually recovered, and although many wounds remained, both physical and emotional, they found a sense of peace neither had believed possible. The nightmare was finally over, or so she thought. 6 months later, on a quiet afternoon, a package arrived at her doorstep with no return address. Inside was a single flash drive and a handwritten note. Amelia's blood ran cold as she read the message. If you're seeing this, then the people behind your mother's death are still out there, and this is the proof.